Would you like to know more? Welcome to the Warmaster Podcast, episode 19. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about some Elegoo Water Washable Clear Blue that I picked up on a Black Friday type thing for about, I think it's about £32 a litre. It's a little bit more expensive maybe than the regular non-water washable, but obviously it's going to have some benefits in being water washable. So the first thing I did was ran a resin exposure test. So that helps you decide at what settings to use for your machine for the different resin. We're having some problems. We'll talk about because I'm going to record a second video discussing these problems in more details. It's a similar problem with the short dwarfs in that we're losing some of the height, and the machine isn't behaving particularly well as it grows up. So if you can see on the back here, you can see this on these fellas here, there's a layer shift where the print's moving to the right and almost slipping off. So we printed this which comes with the Anycubic. It gives you 8 exposures starting on 0.8 seconds and moving up by 0.4 of a second. So the second one, so the one at the top here is 0.8. This one here is is 1.2. You have this one here is 1.6. This one here is 2, which is what the default setting is 2. And then you have 2.4, 2.8, 3.2 and 4. And then once you've printed these 8 off, you get them off the bed and you have to compare them and try and think which one you like the most. But obviously, this bit broke off because I was still having trouble getting them off the beds at this point. Underexposure has issues, overexposure has issues, so you're trying to find the one that best works for you. So it's got the rigidity and strength that you want, but it's not overexposed, so the details are getting blurred out. And I went through this, and I figured it was between this one and this one, so 2 and 2.4. But one thing I did find about these prints is there's too much detail to compare. So this one was 1.6, but the stuff was moving and I can knock it off now, so maybe I've knocked some of that off. This one was 2. And the detail looked good, although I've got to kind of ignore that shift there and the fact I broke the end off here. The water washable stuff isn't as easy to clean, and I'll talk about that in a future video. But so you do end up sometimes getting bits underneath, especially if you're washing it on the plate like I did in the machine, bits under these undercuts and stuff hidden away that don't come out with the wash even after a couple of washes, and then it kind of cures and it doesn't look as nice as it should. So you can see there's a blob under there that didn't come out. So we were having issues with layer shifting again, which is annoying, but what can you do? What can you do? Well, I'll tell you what I did later. But so somebody suggested, rather than doing these, which I mean, it doesn't cost a lot to print these, but little bits and dangles and stuff do fall off, especially of the earlier ones, because you see there's lots of bits missing. So maybe these little dangleberries fell off into the resin vat and stuff. So you want something that's a bit more robust and a bit more tailored. So you can get this. I'll try and find a link for it and put it in the explanation below. It's a resin XP2 validation print, and you set the exposure time. So I set this to 2. These very fine threads at the end I've knocked one off because they are very, very fine, but it printed everything completely, and it looks lined up. These blocks on the top look lined up with the blocks on the bottom. I've got all the stuff here. There might be a couple of very, very small blobs missing here. The negative test looks all right. I mean, this looks bob on, as we'd say up north, or as my dad would tell me, bob on. So this was 2 seconds. I only ran 1. I might fiddle around with it if I stick with this resin for a long time and try and get it slightly better, but that looks pretty good to me. So I was very happy with that. Although at this point my machine was playing up big time. And I'm going to record another video to talk about what I had to do with that. But finally, I will talk a little bit about the water washable resin and what I've discovered when using that in comparison to your regular resin. So that's water washable clear blue from Elegoo, and the stuff I've been using before was Anycubic Basic Clear. Now the pros for using this stuff is, firstly, you don't need to use any IPA to clean. You can just clean with tap water. Warm tap water is better, I find. Warm water makes the miniatures incredibly easy to come off the plate, like unbelievably easy. I've broken nothing. You just slide your metal scraper along the plate and everything comes off. No problems at all. And that for me is like obviously an enormous selling point, because I've been exploring maybe getting flexible plate systems and all this other kind of stuff to help get my miniatures off the plate unbroken. And with this water washable, as long as you're using warm water to wash with, the stuff's going to come off without any issue at all. It also makes removing supports unbelievably easy, but the models are so soft that you have to let them cure a little bit or be very gentle, because it is quite easy to snap stuff off and damage them. But if you take your time, it's unbelievably easy to pull supports off. But with the very small nids that I'm doing for Paul, because I'm doing a nid army, I let them cure a little bit and then cut them off, because they're so fragile and tiny, the bits on these very small nids, that you can't just pull the supports off. You have to let them cure and then cut them off with a pair of shears or little cutters, side cutters. Cleaning the bed, wash container and tools and stuff is super easy. You just use water, warm water. I do use IPA sometimes just to give them a final absolute clearing, so to make sure there's no residue in there. And the final pro is the overall quality of the print, and the toughness and rigidity and stuff, I would say, is very similar to the Anycubic Clear. So much so that I'm not sure I would use Anycubic Clear again. I might have just broken one of those little dangleberries off there. They are very fine. So much so that I probably won't go back to Anycubic Clear, because the benefits just aren't there in comparison. The fact that I can get these off the plate, no problem whatsoever, is a massive plus. Now there are cons, and the cons aren't nothing. As with everything in life, there's your pros and your cons. Now the big con is that disposing of the water, the wastewater, is a pain. You can't just put this stuff down the tap. It's got like tiny bits of resin that will cure. You've got all that kind of terrible microplastic stuff that you're putting into the waterways that then end up in fish and then end up inside people. You can't be doing that. So you have to treat the water that you're washing with in your wash and cure station as if it was IPA, and you have to kind of cure it in the light and then filter it and then make sure you're getting all the IPA, all the resin out of it. Now, that's great that you're just using water and not IPA to do that, but that means that I tend to change the water after every wash, because I want warm water, because that works, and I don't want to start sticking my wash and cure station with its propeller in the microwave or anything silly. I might try and find a way to warm it up in like a bain-marie or whatever it is, like a bath. But at the moment, I'm just putting the water into like 2 litre, like 4-pint milk containers, and then setting them aside, and then using clean water every time. But that is generating a lot of wastewater. So every print, 2 litres of water, another print, another 2 litres of water, and then having to get the resin out of and dispose of properly. So that is something. You can't just put this down the sink. Please don't do that. The models are harder to clean, and so need more wash time, and sometimes a lot more wash time. And even after you've done that, you will end up, like I showed you before, under these undercuts here, having resin that hasn't come out properly. So IPA cleans better for sure, and I've heard of people using IPA to clean this, but that seems a bit counterintuitive to me. Maybe I could do it in a wash bath and then try and dry it and then use IPA. I don't know. The reason I haven't done that is because it takes a long time to dry. It's so much longer, like way longer. Even if you're starting to use a hairdryer and stuff, I'm not sure these were fully dry when I cured them, and I left them hours, because you get water in crevices and stuff. That takes a long time to evaporate. So IPA dries very quickly, like in the matter of a couple of 5 minutes maximum. So you've washed them, you've got them out, you've you've got them off the bed. By that point, they're dry and you can cure them. You have to leave these for hours to dry, hours. So much so that for very small things like the termagants, hormagaunts, and all those kind of tiny nids, gene stealers, I just let them cure on the window ledge because it isn't worth trying to get them dry to then put them in the cure machine. So I just leave them on the window ledge to dry and cure. I haven't seen any problem with that. But that obviously changes the workflow because when you're using your IPA, you can get it washed and cured in a matter of like 15 minutes, but that ain't happening. So you need some space to have your cure stuff to cure on the window ledge or whatever. And the final thing, because this is the only final thing, it's slightly more expensive. I think it was £32 a litre, but that was discounted. Whether that'll change over time, I don't know. Even if it is more expensive, it's certainly no more than maybe 10% more expensive. And you've got to factor in what you want to do with it. So for me, at the moment, I'm loving this stuff. It's Elegoo Water Washable Blue. And the pros are far outweighing the cons. Although, if I was doing it commercially, I'm not sure I could use this water washable stuff because I'm not sure the workflow would work. I'm not sure the process of getting it dried and cured would work. Because I've printed a nid body at the moment that's upstairs for Paul, the Biotitan, and that's going to take hours to dry. So I've just left him up there to dry, and then I'll cure him later on tonight. So it's definitely quicker to use the other stuff with the IPA, but the main and the big selling point for me is the fact that I can get it off the print bed without damaging anything, and that's so far so important an issue that it drowns out most of the other issues. So for me, at the moment, I'm completely sold on this stuff.